Catholic Relief Services has been developing the Iraqi Refugee Trauma Training Program. Arlene Flaherty, Justice and Peace Partnership Liaison of CRS Services of the Northeast Office, explains the program.
The Iraqi Refugee Trauma Training Project entails training staff overseas who are working with Iraqi refugees, training that staff in understanding what trauma is and how to work with refugees in ways that helps them cope with the effects and the impact of trauma on their lives.
Cases of persons someone from their family was assassinated in front of their eyes. We have many children also who were kidnapped. In front of them they saw severe scenes of torture.
So many Iraqi refugee families I've met with in other countries of the Middle East have told me horror stories about kidnappings and murders and all sorts of atrocities that they had to face. This was not just an isolated thing happening to a few types of people in one or two places in Iraq. This was all over, and it was terrorizing.
You know, a child who is 6 years old who was kidnapped in Iraq, and now in Lebanon he is being followed by our psychologists. But this child hates a lot his name because he thinks that he was kidnapped because of his name.
Some interventions should be done in order to help the Iraqis to cope with the trauma because, for example, there were some children who had been so traumatized by war and by displacement that when they were in countries where they had relative safety, although temporary, these children were so traumatized that some of them were unable to leave the house. They were unable to go to school, even if they could go to school, because they were traumatized. They were so frightened.
You know, when kids go through trauma, it depends on how they deal with it. You know, some kids, it causes them anxiety. So, you know, if they continually ruminate about it and can't deal with it in a healthy way, then, you know, they could develop an anxiety disorder later. Other kids may hold it inside and perhaps think that it's their fault or something like that, and perhaps that could lead to depression later in life.
The Trauma Relief Program educates refugees to deal with the trauma that they have encountered. Individuals are grouped together based on their experiences. The group atmosphere provides a grounds of release and discussions for those who have been traumatized by violence.
Many Iraqi refugees would actually be trained to sort of be trauma educators in the Iraqi population, and they would actually work in the communities where Iraqi refugees are living.
We have psychologists who provides for them counseling and follow-up individual, but we have also many cases who have family counseling and group therapy.
Group therapies like that are really powerful because they work as a support group, and so many people with disorders, whatever it might be, or who go through these traumatic experiences feel alone and feel like they're the only person that is going through this. So to meet with other people that are going through the same problems, the same issues, whatever it might be, lends itself to the healing, to the therapy, where you do feel some sense of support and that you can all get through it together and you're not alone in getting through it. So, you know, again, some sufferers give up because they feel they're alone and they can't tackle it by themselves. But being around other individuals who are going through the same thing is a really great support system, network, whatever you want to call it, and gives them the strength to move forward knowing that other people are doing it too.
Lebanon didn't sign Geneva Convention. The process to enter Lebanon is not so easy. Some of them are exploited by traffickers. Others are, coming through legal channel, but then they found the new country very difficult. And many of them can be arrested and put in prison while in Lebanon. They cannot work in Lebanon legally, so they are all working illegally. They cannot have what they thought they will have when they left Iraq.
Some people in Iraq are hesitant to come forward to receive trauma treatment because of a stigma attached to mental health problems.
If we remove the idea of a diagnosis from the idea of trauma and just really help people to understand that what they have is not something of a deficit. It doesn't speak about a deficit that they have as a human being, but it really is something that is a consequence of circumstances over which they had no control.
Since the start of the program, more citizens have come forward to discuss their experiences and have not been crippled by the thought of stigma.
In the beginning, we had faced some difficulties to convince people of the importance. Now you cannot imagine the number of clients, and we were obliged even to hire another psychologist.
Even though we are countries away from Iraq, we can still support CRS and the Trauma Relief Program by spreading our knowledge of the situation of Iraqi refugees and the developments of the Trauma Relief Program.
Knowledge and the advocacy benefits us hugely because, through advocacy, you put in that knowledge to use. And it really helps people in the developing world if people understand about their lives more. It would inform many decisions in your lives. In an interconnected world, all the decisions that we make can potentially impact people overseas.
We are people who, although we might be on different sides of a conflict, we share a common humanity that, sort of suffers and is vulnerable to the violence of war. And I think to the extent to which we're able to support our soldiers returning who are traumatized and to be able to support Iraqi refugees who are trying to get back home and who are also traumatized, to that extent that we begin to heal these wounds of war in each other, that we really will be able to achieve the outcome that we want, which is really deep peace building between the people of Iraq and the people of the United States.